They said the Black Hollow farmhouse had been empty since 1897, after the Carter family vanished overnight. But when Emily and her fiancé Ryan bought it this year, it didn't look haunted, just forgotten. Peeling paint, cracked windows, and that old smell of dust and damp wood. It was cheap, too cheap for a house this size in rural Pennsylvania. Emily laughed when the realtor whispered, "Don't stay after midnight." She thought it was just small-town superstition. The first night, everything was quiet until the floorboards started breathing. Not creaking, breathing. Slow, shallow, rhythmic, like something alive beneath the wood. Ryan blamed the pipes, but Emily couldn't sleep. At 2:37 a.m., she heard it again. This time, a faint whisper coming through the vent in the hallway. A woman's voice, soft and trembling, repeating the same word. It wasn't English. She leaned closer. It grew louder. The voice wasn't coming from the vent that it was under the floor. Emily woke Ryan, shaking him, her voice cracking. He groaned, told her to go back to bed. When she turned back to the vent, a thin breath of cold air brushed her cheek. Something beneath whispered her name this time. Emily. The lights flickered. The whisper became a low hum, vibrating the walls. Then silence. When morning came, Emily found small handprints in the dust beneath the vent, too small for any adult. But they were smeared across the wood as if something had tried to crawl out. Ryan told her not to tell anyone. But that night, when he went down to check the basement, she heard him scream. A sound that didn't stop, just faded, like he was being pulled away. And then she heard the whisper again, right behind her ear. "Stay." Emily stood frozen in the hallway, her breath clouding in the air. It wasn't cold before. Now it felt like winter had seeped into the walls. The silence after Ryan's scream was worse than the sound itself. Thick, heavy, endless. She whispered his name, but the house swallowed it whole. The basement door stood half open. A dark crack yawned beneath it, breathing that same slow rhythm again. She gripped the flashlight and called out, her voice trembling. No answer, only the sound of dripping water echoing from below. Each step down the wooden stairs felt like sinking into the earth. The air grew denser, colder, and wet. The beam of light cut through a cloud of dust, and then something moved, a shadow darting past the corner. She froze, pointing the light toward it, but there was nothing. Only an old furnace and the faint outline of a door, one she hadn't noticed before. It was carved directly into the stone wall, sealed with rusted nails and wax that looked ancient. Ryan wasn't there, but his phone was lying in the dirt, its flashlight still on. The screen was cracked, smeared with mud. When she picked it up, the camera app was open, recording. The timer showed 47 minutes. She hit play. The footage shook violently. Ryan was breathing hard, whispering that he heard something behind the furnace. Then came the sound of scraping metal, a hiss, and a whisper that wasn't his. A voice, deep and distorted, saying, "Let me in." Emily dropped the phone. The whisper came again, but not from the recording. It came from the sealed door. The wax began to melt. One of the nails popped loose with a soft metallic click. Then another. And another. Something behind the wall started to push. The stone cracked. Emily stumbled backward, screaming Ryan's name again. But what answered her was a voice that sounded almost like his. Only stretched, hollow, and wrong. Then the basement lights died, and she realized she wasn't alone anymore. The darkness wasn't empty anymore. Emily could hear it moving, something heavy dragging across the dirt floor, slow and patient. The faint smell of rot filled her nose. She raised the flashlight again, but the beam flickered, stuttering in and out like a dying heartbeat. Then she saw the basement wall that it was breathing. The stone itself rose and fell, cracks widening like the ribs of something trapped inside. From those cracks, a black liquid began to seep, thick, tar-like, reeking of rust and decay. "Ryan," she whispered. Her voice broke halfway through his name. Something stepped into the light. It was wearing Ryan's clothes, but his eyes were gone. The sockets were hollow, and his mouth hung open wider than any human jaw could. A sound crawled out of him, a distorted echo of his voice. "Emily, stay!" She stumbled backward, shaking, whispering no over and over. The thing smiled. Its face twitched, rearranging like wet clay, bones cracking beneath the skin. Every step it took, the lights flickered harder. When it spoke again, the voice changed. It wasn't Ryan anymore. It was the same whisper she'd heard through the vent. The woman's voice. He opened the door. "You will too." Emily ran up the stairs, the boards moaning under her feet. Behind her, she could hear that dragging sound again, only now it was faster, closer. She slammed the basement door shut and pressed her weight against it. The wood thudded, once, twice, then went still. The house fell silent again. She turned around and screamed. Handprints were appearing on the walls. Tiny ones, dozens of them, each pressed into the wallpaper from inside, as if something was crawling between the walls, trying to get out. And then the whisper returned, this time from every corner of the house, all at once. "Don't leave, Emily. You're part of us now." The lights flickered, and Ryan's voice whispered one last word from behind the door. "Run." Emily didn't run. She couldn't. The front door wouldn't open. The knob twisted endlessly, like the metal itself was alive. Every window she tried to break just showed the same thing outside. Black woods, no sky, no moon, no light. It was like the house had swallowed her whole. The whispers were louder now, layering over each other, men, women, children, all speaking in that strange, foreign tongue. The walls pulsed with sound, breathing like lungs, alive and ancient. The floor beneath her feet began to sink, the boards softening like flesh. She fell through, down into the earth. The fall didn't hurt. She landed on something that felt like skin. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't in a basement anymore. She was in a tunnel, a narrow hollow stretching into blackness, lined with the shapes of faces pressed into the dirt. Open mouths, silent screams. Their eyes followed her. Then she saw him, Ryan, standing at the far end of the tunnel, pale, shaking, eyes black like glass. He lifted his hand and pointed behind her. Emily turned. The woman from the whispers stood inches away, her body thin and twisted, her face covered in soil. Her eyes were white, her lips torn. She spoke softly like a lullaby. He opened it. "You followed. Now you stay." Emily tried to scream, but the sound didn't come. The woman reached out and placed her hand on Emily's chest. Cold, heavy. Everything went still. Then the woman whispered one last thing in English. Black Hollow was never a house. It was a mouth. Emily's body went limp, sinking into the earth. The walls around her shifted and closed, swallowing her whole. When the sheriff came 3 days later, the house was empty again. Ryan and Emily were gone. Only one thing remained. A phone lying in the dirt beside the furnace, still recording. The footage showed the basement door slowly creaking open and something whispering from inside, "Welcome home."